Okay, today we have our very first guest, Max Gills from OT, now at Waterloo.
Yeah.
And I'm Heather. This is Matthew, my co host. Today we will be talking about cultural appropriation. We chose this topic because I told Max before we start recording, but I'll say it for this podcast as well. I chose this topic because I've been growing out my hair for a year now. And I chose to experiment with my hair, and I braided my hair and I
Mm.
put on my close friend story, and I got replies with people saying, "Yo, that's fucking racist. You shouldn't be doing that." And I was like, "Damn, bro, okay." And then one of them was Matthew, and so then we had this whole debate. We're like, "Okay, what are we gonna do about this?" And then we're like, "You know what? Let's make a podcast out of this." And that's why we have Max with us today, because he will be sharing his perspective on this topic with us today.
Yeah.
So, Max, would you like to introduce yourself to the podcast?
Yeah. First podcast. My name is Max. Full name is Maxime Gilbert. Um, yeah, I go to Laurier University right now. I'm in Waterloo, at the apartment. So this is why it's on Zoom call, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm same here as you guys. I guess should I give a little background?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay. So I'm from South Africa. Grew up most of my life in Oakville though. So I was adopted in South Africa. Lived there maybe 2.5 years. Then I moved to Dominican Republic, and then I moved to Quebec, where my adopted family lives. Like that's where they grew up, right? And
Right.
then I moved to Oakville when I was in going into grade one. So pretty much been around Oakville for most of my life, and then we go back to Quebec sometimes, but that's about it. So I'm bilingual too, I guess.
Oh,
That's
you
something.
can speak French?
Yeah. That's my first language.
Yo, that's sick.
Yeah, because my adoptive parents are white, so that's their first language.
Right, right. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah,
Do you want to talk about your activism for BLM?
yeah. We can talk about that.
Because I saw on your stories like you were marching out on the streets and everything. So, uh, do you want to share something about that?
Yeah. So how that started was basically after the George Floyd incident.
Yeah,
Well, I was always like posting stuff on my stories, but
yeah, yeah, for sure.
from before, but the George Floyd one was pretty like everyone heard about that, like everyone had seen the video. And then my sister came to me, it was in the summer, my sister came to me in my room and she's talking about this is my younger sister. She's now in grade 11, but it was in the summer. And she was talking about how her and her friends wanted to do a little like march or something, or like something to do with Black Lives Matter, because obviously it's not just an issue in the United States, but like globally. So she wanted to do something about it, and she was like, "Oh, would you be interested?" Like, I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'm interested." So she added me to this group chat, and then from there we just started planning for it, and then we said it was going to be at OT, and then I ended up blowing up way bigger than we thought it would be,
Yeah, yeah,
and it got a lot of attention, I guess, from people around Oakville, which was what we wanted, but we didn't expect really.
yeah,
Um, and then from there, I guess we kind of like had to reschedule because it was just way bigger than we thought, and we needed to think about like COVID and like the safety issues. But then someone else, I guess, still wanted to. Well, a lot of people still wanted to march and do the protest and all that. So then someone else took over this group chat basically said, okay, we'll reschedule, and then someone else took over, and then it ended up happening at a different location. But as this was all going down, I guess the news wanted to get involved. So I wasn't like really expecting that either, but I had to do like a little interview for uh, I believe it was CBC News or something like that. But
I
me and
saw
my
that. I saw that in
yeah,
interview.
yeah. I had to do an interview with my sister, and they talked about how it is growing up in Oakville, where it's predominantly white, and how is it for my sister to see like this happening, knowing I'm her black brother, like things like that. Just like, and then that was cool experience. First ever interview, and
Yeah,
then yeah, that's pretty much how it went down. And then we had a couple of other events, but nothing as major as the protests. But it was just a cool experience to be a part of, knowing you're doing something for the Black Lives Matter movement.
for sure, for sure. All right, so we'll move on to our very first question, which is, what is cultural appropriation?
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna give the Google definition of this term,
Hmm.
which is, so on Google it says cultural appropriation is the adoption of an element or elements of one culture or identity by members of another culture or identity. This can be controversial when members of a dominant culture appropriate from disadvantaged minority cultures. Now, what do you think is the definition of cultural appropriation? And like, do you agree with the definition that Google has provided?
Yeah. So I'm very new to this cultural appropriation because I didn't even know that was a thing till like I was just educating myself on it like this summer, like basically like learning new things. Like I was just learning and learning and learning. But from what I knew, I thought cultural appropriation was just when people were basically like stealing from our culture and things like, well, not just our any culture without like acknowledgement, I guess, right? So
Yeah,
um my thoughts on it are, I don't feel like, see, if you want to braid your hair, I feel like it's fine as long as you don't like then go out of your way. Like if for the Black Lives Matter thing, like if you're not posting, not doing anything, but see you're playing rap music, like you're braiding your hair, that's a different, that's when you need to have like a little conversation, like, oh, like I'm not doing the right thing here. But if you want to braid your hair, it shouldn't be a problem as long as you're, it's all about context to me. But
true, true, true. So I'll share my views on this
yeah,
because I myself come from a minority
yeah, yeah, yeah.
culture, right? Because in Canada, like we both are a minority. I'm from Pakistan.
Hmm.
I guess
Yeah, and then I'm pretty much
this guy would
everybody
be
else.
this guy would be the majority culture
Yeah.
Hmm.
because he's white. But I think, like cultural appropriation when it comes to me, like I'm a minority myself, right? So if like I'm not really exploiting your culture by braiding my hair,
Yeah,
and it's not like I'm against the BLM or anything. Like I'm all for it. And honestly, I would have been at the protest myself if it wasn't for COVID, because
yeah,
my mom has asthma, right? So I couldn't take the risk of like
yeah,
going out and catching the virus and coming back to my mom. But if it wasn't for COVID, I would have been there with you
yeah,
because I'm an advocate for Black Lives Matter and like in general, just like I don't like racism because I've been a victim of racism myself, right? So
hmm,
I feel like if I'm doing it, I don't think it's wrong.
yeah,
But yeah, that's just my opinion. What do you think, Matthew?
Yeah, so basically me and Heather were having like a really good discussion about this
yeah,
ever since he braided his hair. And what I think is he's from Oakville and I'm from Mississauga, right? I mean, he's from Pakistan, but he went to high school in Oakville, right?
yeah,
So depending on the overall majority in Canada is pretty much just white people, but like depending on which areas you're from, um, the different cultures and racial ethnicities of people, it varies, right? So
yeah,
in Mississauga, I see a lot more brown people, like Heather, as opposed to me being here in Oakville. And so I felt personally, I see a much more, I see definitely see a diverse population in Mississauga, Brampton, Toronto,
hmm,
and I was telling him I feel as if like the Google definition doesn't fully accurately define
yeah,
what like what cultural appropriation might be, because I see black people and I see Muslim people, and I feel like regardless of if he wants to braid his hair or not, at the end of the day, if he's gonna braid his hair to full on, like if he's gonna braid his hair in a completely African way, and enter a neighborhood where he's one of the only non-black people that are wearing braids in a predominantly black community, I think it, while it isn't technically cultural appropriation, it'll still draw some attention, probably some negative attention as to maybe some people looking at him thinking, you know, he's pretty much wearing
Their
something of a
hairstyle,
black culture.
right?
Yeah, their hairstyle essentially, right? So I think it'll draw some attention, some negative attention. So I still feel like, in a way, while it isn't cultural appropriation, it can be seen as that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
I've heard that too with the do-rags. A lot of people
Yeah.
want to do that. And people
yeah.
don't do that, and then
So I'll move on to the next question, which is generally speaking, is cultural appropriation wrong?
like I said, I think it's a lot about context, because you don't want people just disrespecting black people, white people, anything like that, like brown people, whatever the case may be, and then they just still they're still, like eating your food or braiding their hair, wearing do-rags. It's very like double sensed, I guess. Like, to me, it's all about context again. Like, I think if someone wants to braid their hair, it shouldn't be a problem as long as they're doing it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of dominant and minority cultures, let's say that Matthew decides to braid his hair, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think is the right way for him to do it? Like, how does he braid his hair without making it look controversial?
To a lot of people who don't know Matthew, it's very hard for him to do it the right way, because, see, if I don't know Matthew at all and I just see him braiding his hair, I could think it's cultural appropriation. I could think it's whatever, because I've never met him, and I just see, his skin tone, and then I just see his hair, and then I'm like, oh, that's cultural appropriation, which is a problem, because we can't just be judging people right off the bat. Like, if you don't know, you don't know. Like, you just gotta, basically, you gotta give him the benefit of the doubt, or then Matthew's in a tough situation. It's one of the two.
How do you feel about like, let's say him wearing braids, for example,
Yeah,
even if you were to braid them in like an African way? How do you feel about that?
yeah. I wouldn't mind at all. Oh, like, if he wants to braid his hair, he can braid his hair just like I can braid my hair.
Mm.
I think is just context, but if it looks good, I don't mind it either. Like, like,
No, I'll send you a picture of what I look like, and then you can tell.
okay,
Yeah, I need somebody to vouch for me.
Right. So I'll move it on, and I'll ask you what you like. Have you seen that picture of Adele in that full like Jamaican costume or whatever? Like, she's wearing the Jamaican flag. She has her hair braided, and she just looks very odd in that
Really?
picture.
No, I haven't seen it.
I don't know if you've seen it, but I'll pull it up for you.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really weird, and I think it was on Six Buzz as well.
Okay.
Adele, Jamaica.
Was it for Halloween, or she was just?
No, it wasn't even for Halloween. It was just like some carnival.
Yeah.
This is what it is.
Ugh.
Yeah,
Like,
That's
so,
not
like,
fair.
what do you think of this?
I've never seen that.
Like,
just,
that's weird,
regardless of what culture that is, I don't feel like it suits her.
That's true.
Yeah, it doesn't suit her really.
But, I guess she had backlash from that.
Yeah, bro, she did. Like, people were like, "What are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know you hadn't seen this, but now that you've seen it, like, what do you think?
I don't know. I guess people are tying it into cultural appropriation, but I just don't like the way it looks on her. But I don't have an issue like her doing that. But like, I don't have an issue from her braiding her hair or wearing what she wants to wear. If anything, she's basically promoting that culture's style. No.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
But Not if it looks like that.
That's true though.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. So like people really focus a lot on like hairstyle and like
Yeah.
braids and cornrows and all that. So you really think the issue lies with the hairstyle itself, or like what exactly is the issue here? Is it really the hair?
Well, the background behind the hair is like when back when there was slavery, like a lot of people would memorize their escape routes or whatever their routes were to like get water, like things like that, and they just do it with their hair. Like they were so talented, they could do it with their hair. Like they could just braid their hair, and then it came became like a popular like fashion sense thing, and then um, it just became like yeah part of fashion and beauty, and now it's just blowing up. And then it's not just black people that want to do it; white people want to do it, uh, Arab people want to do it, whatever people want to do it, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
growing and growing. So to me, that's not the issue. To me, the issue is just like if you're not for us, don't be for our culture.
Culture.
Don't be
Yeah,
for
yeah, makes sense,
you know
makes sense.
like
Definitely. Yeah.
if you don't like if you because normally like if you don't like someone you won't do what they like, you won't do like you won't hang around them, you won't do what they the same shit they want to do. Like I don't know, it's just weird to me like how people it seems a little off like how people love black culture and then hate black people because it's from black people. So if they want to hate us they should hate us. If they want to love us they should fully love us. Like because then
You know
I
we're
agree.
that
Yeah.
in the
that's a
middle,
very
like,
interesting
and
point.
I'm just confused if if someone's braided up and then all of a sudden, like, they don't want to come hang out with me. They just hate it. They're just hating, saying the N word. Like, it's just a little confusing and becomes just pure hate, no?
Yeah, bro, you're absolutely right. And that point actually got me thinking. Like the BLM movement really like took off, and everyone was like posting on their stories and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I feel like a lot of white people or just other people in general started doing it because it became a trend, and people just hopped on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
And I actually follow this girl from she's from my university. She's also black, and she called these people out on her story. She's like, because in her school there was some case of racism,
mhm,
because one of her friends who's also from that same culture,
yeah,
she wanted to open a club about black culture or something around that, and no teacher sponsored it and no teacher wanted to be like a part of it, so she couldn't really open it because nobody wanted to support that club.
yeah,
And other than that, there were a lot of other racism cases where they were, like you said, the n-word was being used and all of that stuff, and no action was taken by the school. But the same people that were being racist to that were girl, they, because of the BLM movement and everything, they were posting it on their stories about BLM. So
yeah.
like, how does that make sense? Like, it's just
Wow.
weird to see that.
Yeah, that is weird to see. Um, I just feel like posting is very good, like for um awareness, but at this point I'm pretty sure everyone's aware of what's going on or has seen like a George Floyd or like, so it's just about taking action, like things like enforcing like people to vote. We've seen that with the United States with their elections. Everyone was big on voting this year. Like you heard a lot of stories about athletes and celebrities. Oh, I didn't vote, but now I'm voting. Like that's a big step because um, that's that's the first step to really a big change. Like if you want to see change from Trump to Biden, you vote for Biden. If you want to see Trump, and you vote whatever, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing should be applied in Canada. Like, same thing for legislation. If you see like you just really got to do your research, and like that's how you really change something. You got to put in your effort because obviously the easy thing to do is stay quiet or let people do it for you or have that mindset of, oh, I can't really do anything, or like just post a story, but signing petitions, like things like that, where it just helps everyone, and it just makes a makes a little step forward.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Makes sense. So I'll tie this topic of cultural appropriation with the larger topic, which is racism, right? And when I moved to Canada in 2017, I was like, it's Canada, it's so much better than USA. There won't be any racism. And then when I came to OT, like that was when I first experienced racism. And
Okay.
the question that I've written in the talking points is, does racism exist in Canada?
Absolutely. I think racism exists in Canada, exists in the United States, it exists everywhere to me. I think most places at least. But yeah, moving into Oakville, I experienced racism. Um, I would say like closeted racism. Like
Right.
people so outspoken about it, but things like um, I'm walking down uh, the sidewalk and girls looking all happy and then just eyes down, like scared at for me for no reason, things like that. Like, or I'm going to Starbucks, going to order food, and I see this woman just holding her purse a little tighter, and like, or
Uh,
I've heard people use the N word. Obviously, that's
yeah, yeah.
something I hear a lot, but
I hear
like
so many
that.
white people like use the N word there, especially like
Yeah,
just use it just like
I'm
casually.
talking like not even in the songs though, like just like in my face, I'm just like, yo, like you gotta relax.
I was in 11th grade. I was in my biology class one day,
Hmm.
and I'm not gonna name any names, but there was one black guy in our class, and I'm not even joking. Like five white people literally said the N word in front of him at least 50 times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he felt so powerless, bro. And I was sitting right next to him. I was like, listen, bro, you don't need to take shit from these guys. Like,
But I feel like with the we live in a very privileged, very predominantly white environment, and I feel like a lot of us weren't educated about what had gone down. Like not too long ago, like when my mom grew up, there was still slavery involved. Like there was still all that stuff going on. So especially in South Africa, but until you saw like Nelson Mandela, like uh, basically like help start the movement of stopping apartheid. But yeah, I just feel like there's a lack of education. Like if people really understood, like I think about this every day, like damn, like if no one did anything and just basically what we see right now, like a lot of bystanders, I would still be in that position where I could be a slave, I could be owned by someone else, like I could be like just getting abused. But obviously people stepped up. But I just think most people have to realize that like if you say that to the wrong person, like people have died over saying the n-word, like in the wrong place, wrong time. Like you can't really, like that's something you shouldn't be saying as well. Like
yeah,
from
true.
that perspective, like if we go to Compton or something, or like some places where they just have that on their mind 24/7, don't say that around me. Like people have died over just like the wrong
Yeah,
thing. Like
true.
I don't know, there's that part of it, like you don't provoke anyone, but also like you just gotta be respectful. Like it's a respect and educational part, like because I know I'm not saying anything racist to the white people.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I'll move it on to my next question, and everything that you just said, I think that kind of answers it. But the question was, why was the BLM movement necessary?
Okay. Yeah, I think it was necessary because it just keeps happening. You just every week. Obviously, you're gonna find people who don't believe in the movement, or But if you look deep enough, you can find it happening all the time. Like there's always shootings. There's always people dying over just their skin tone. Not even black, just like racism is is a very prominent like issue in the world. Like
Yeah.
so, like obviously, like you know about this, like um, but yeah. So I just felt like it was necessary because to get better, we need to do something. We can't just sit there and then expect things to change. And when my sister came to me, I was like, oh, no brainer. Like, obviously, I'll help. Like, it was one of those things. Like, I just didn't think twice about it. And then I feel like we helped. Obviously, there's going to be people that's going to try to be distractors, but you just got to keep a tunnel vision on that. And then,
Yeah, I agree. I agree, man. So I'll move it on. And my next question is, what do you think is the impact of this movement? Like, how, if anything, like, do you think there has been a change after this whole BLM movement in the summer happened?
well, I think um, we have seen a change because people are now voting. Like I said earlier, people are protesting all around the world. Like over the George Floyd incident, we seen it was the biggest like movement, I guess, in the world. Like people were protesting everywhere in the world, so it was very impactful. Just this one, but I feel like we put the world on notice. Um, oh, we won't stand for this. Like we're aware of what's going on, and but now it's like it's time to take like steps further down the line. We need to have like more of a structured kind of plan, which I think is what's happening right now, because people are looking deeper than just awareness, like posting on their Instagrams.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree, man. And I'll tie this in with our own school. I think that this movement was necessary to educate everyone, not just like people from the rural areas who've never seen a minority
Yeah,
culture or anything. But I feel like everyone needs to be educated because you and I both have been victim to racism in our own school at Opal Trafalgar High School, right? So I want you to talk about the racist stuff that you've dealt with in the school.
yeah. Well, at school, a lot of the people I knew them from basically grade 6, just because of sports and things like that. So the people I would hang with were people that I have known for a while. So they were all fine with me. But then you have people, like I said earlier, who are more closeted, like scared, like very shy, like not open. Like if I'm like recently, like maybe grade 10, I just tried something with my hair, like just the fade on the sides. People were very like, oh, like I don't know, that's like a little weird, like just little things like that I
Yeah,
pick
yeah,
up. I wonder, like, oh, is that like something you would say if I was like, I don't know. That's just some things that I just, or if I wore a do rag, I know a lot of my teachers will not let me wear a do rag in class. Like, or if I put a hoodie on, they'd be like, yo, no hoodlums in class, things like that. But
that sucks, man.
yeah,
I'll share some of my.
sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt. There's also this rule at school that um, my friend Tavon was wearing. I don't know if you guys know Tavon, but
yeah, I know Tavon. He was in the same biology class I was talking about.
okay. Yeah, he was wearing bandanas to school for a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I guess a week or two later, they banned bandanas from school because it's gang affiliated or something. I don't know. Just weird things like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
actually sucks, man.
Yeah.
So pretty much this next question, I just want to take this next question.
Yeah,
Um, so the next question is basically how do we tackle racism? And I wanted to um, get a point of view from both somebody like me, who's white, who's part of majority culture, and
Yeah.
you who are part of minorities. How can we work together to pretty much tackle racism and do what we can do now, and also tackle it so that we can prevent it from happening in the long term?
Well, I think I've seen this a lot on the internet and like just being publicized everywhere. Like the whole belief that there is white privilege and acknowledging white privilege, or acknowledging your if see if you're in a majority and we're dealing with minorities, just acknowledge that you're a majority, because majority can have so much impact. We were dealing with that when we wanted to start the Black Lives Matter protest or march or whatever in Oakville. A lot of people were hesitant because they were like, oh, we're in a predominantly white neighborhood, like they're not gonna care or whatever. But or what are you gonna do? Just let people join us? I was like, yeah, that's the goal. Like, make sure they know what's going on. Make sure, because when you're in a majority, it's a lot easier to influence the people that are the majority, because they'll listen to you. But when you're in a minority trying to talk to the majority, that's where it could be a little friction. So acknowledging that privilege that you have, and it's not a bad thing. It's just like the situation you're in. It's not like I'm mad because you're white. Like, it's just like the situation at stake. Because a lot of people may get offended. Like, I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, you're so white," but to me, it's like, you gotta embrace. Like, I don't get why people always say, "Oh, you're a white boy or a white girl." To me, it's just like, oh yeah, like people need to embrace it and just be mindful of what situation they're at and use it to their advantage. If you want to help the Black Lives Movement, use what you have to your advantage.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm definitely gonna do, at least for the long term, is um, nobody's born racist. I think that's something that's incredibly important. They're raised in a way to encourage racism or influence it or even taught it, right? So
Yeah.
I'm a really big advocate for teaching the youth to accept people regardless of their skin color and um, embrace it, because I know growing up personally, like my mom and dad never told me to stay away from the kids of color, never play with them in the schoolyard, right? I'm going to encourage my children, if I have any, to embrace every other person's culture, color, background, wherever they're from. And
Yeah.
I think it's important to instill those values while they're young, so that they can grow up to be better individuals from it. And I think personally, education, especially at a young age, is like one long-term way to help pretty much to really help get rid of racism and that the whole stigma
Yeah.
like for good. I think that's
I,
really
I think that too. And I also think um, um, the news plays a little part in it too. Like, we've seen the news talk about 9/11. And then right after 9/11, people were scared of Muslims. Like, all of Muslims were responsible for 9/11. Like, like they're just generalizing Muslims. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, you can't really be born racist. It's something that's taught. Just like you can teach love, you can teach hate.
absolutely.
So it's all about the person who's teaching.
I'm gonna bounce off from Matthew's point that you're not born a racist.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually this Polish girl at OT, and I had like a thing with her, but it didn't work out because if like I found out that both her parents are Islamophobic, and they did not want me to be dating her because of my religious beliefs or whatever.
Yeah.
And like I actually kind of figured out that she herself was kind of scared of Islam. Like, as a joke, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna convert you to Islam. As a joke, I said that. And literally this was her reply. She's like, I'm never gonna convert to Islam. I do not like agree with the women's rights. I was like, okay, what do you know about women's rights in Islam? Like,
People assume that all of um, from what they've seen or what they've heard, they just make assumptions.
exactly, bro. And
Yeah.
like she talked about the hijab,
Yeah.
the face covering that Muslim women wear. And ironically, in our squad, we did have a hijab practicing girl with us, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I just asked her. I was like, "Yo," and her name was Salam. So I
Mm-hmm.
literally just asked her. I was like, "Salam, you wear the hijab. Do you think you're oppressed?" And she's like, "No, I'm not." And it literally just shut her up.
Yeah.
I was like, would
Mm-hmm.
you know nothing about Islam? So like, educate yourself, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
honestly, it's not even her fault because her own parents are Islamophobic, so that's the environment she was raised in.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But it was
Um,
ugly, bro.
yeah, I just think you have to really educate yourself because most of the times you don't know what you're talking about. Like I had to re-educate myself about a lot of stuff. Obviously, I was aware of racism, but some of the terms like cultural appropriation or being an advocate for the defunding the police, things like that. I had to educate myself on like what's the reasoning behind it. Like I thought police because I would think that funding the police would help because then they could spend more time educating the police officers and things like that. But in reality, it's that they don't educate the police at all, even though they have the funds.
For sure. Yeah.
And I saw something, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's harder, it's more training to be a barber than it is to be a police officer.
That is true.
It's
That's
true?
actually
Yeah,
jokes.
yeah, for sure. And also it's more training. Like for firefighters and stuff, they have like years and years of training, and police
Mhm.
officers only have like what, like 4 months or something like that, and then they just throw them out completely. Into like being a cop, and they don't give them enough training whatsoever. I
Yeah.
honestly think police, they should be training for like years, at least like around like 3 to 4
Because
before they put them out. Just
My
put them out there.
my cousin actually is trying to become a cop, and I think he's in his. So I don't know exactly how the system works, but he told me that it takes around 2 years for police academy, and while you're in the academy, you can like get hired as a bodyguard or just like a bouncer or something like that, and you do have access to firearm, I think, but I don't know much about it. But I think it does take like 2 years.
Mm.
to me it's just a little weird, like because you get put in a you go from being a normal citizen to get put in a position of complete authority, and you enforce the law, and people kind of fear you. So when you have people who are supposed to enforce the law scared of black people or scared of Muslims or whatever the case may be, and they have a firearm and you're unarmed, and they can just think, oh, he's a threat, oh, I'm going to take his life because I think he's a threat. Things like that is just very scary to me because um, it's based on the police system. So
And
that they're put in the dungeon basically, and have to react off what they know. And yeah, I just don't agree with that.
the thing with the police training is that um, they're supposed to be taught to de-escalate the situation, right?
Mhm.
But what they're doing is they're just coming in, they're just shooting people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think this happened around the time of the George Floyd incident. There
Mhm.
was this schizophrenic Pakistani Muslim guy. He was like in his 60s, and he locked himself up in a room with a knife. So he was a danger to himself. There was no one else in the room,
Yeah.
but his family members, they called the police so that they could, help him.
Mhm.
They came and they just shot him, and he died on the spot.
Yeah.
Instead of saving his life, which was why they were called, they came and they just killed him.
There's so many better ways to I feel like there's so many better ways to handle that situation, like taser, or like I don't know, you call a like police, you call more than two or more than one police officer, they should be able to handle a schizophrenic with a knife without having to kill him, like disarm him or something.
And the thing is, he wasn't even a threat to anyone else. He was just a threat to himself. So there
Yeah.
was no reason to kill him. You were trying to save him. So
Yeah.
like it
I've
made no sense.
Yeah, and I've seen and heard so many stories of police officers just stopping people for like a stop sign or a ticket, or just because they fit the description or whatever the case
Right.
may be, and they go license and registration, and then goes to get his license, and he just thinks he's pulling out a gun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
He
course.
just shoots him like
But
it's so messed up. Like it's just
it is.
completely the officer's fault.
Yeah,
It's
And,
it's
exactly.
and then that's when they do the background check right after, just to like validate what they
Yeah,
doing. Oh, this guy, like back in 2014, he was, like after the fact that he killed him and he didn't know that at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I always say this. I always say this to people. Like for example, my dad got pulled over one time for speeding from a cop, right? And he took out his license and everything, and he received the ticket, and then he was on his way. And I always make this analogy to people. I say, whenever I'm driving as a white person, if I'm speeding too quickly, or let's say I get pulled over for something, I'm never worried for my life
Yeah.
because of my skin color. And I think that's a problem. And I think I could never understand how it could feel,
Yeah.
but I can practice empathy and I can try to sympathize and see how somebody like you or somebody like Heather, someone of color, can feel.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I always make that analogy. It's white people can never really understand that, and I think it takes an open mind in order to get rid of that stigma and uh, overall just educate. Education is
Yeah.
the biggest thing. I think it is.
And um yeah, I've been lucky enough not to get stopped yet. I've had my license for a year, like my G2 for a year and a half. I don't know, maybe I'm a good driver or something, but
bro.
hopefully I don't have to get
I
stopped
actually
by the
have
police
a, I actually
yet.
have a really funny story about getting pulled over.
Yeah.
My twin brother, me, and one of my other friends. I don't know if you know him, Mahibi.
Oh yeah, Mo, right?
Oh yeah, we call him
Like
Mo.
the OT, right?
Yeah, OT OT.
Okay,
So
yeah,
we were going to his cottage, right, which is in South Frontenac. It's like around Kingston area. So we were like headed north of Ontario, and as we were driving along, it just got wider and wider, right? So we were like going 160 on the highway,
Wow.
and we didn't know the laws, so we get pulled over by this white cop, and he impounds our vehicle. He suspends my brother's license for a week,
Mhm.
and and the law was that if you're driving over 155 or something, your car gets impounded.
Mhm.
and and honestly, like, I don't want to say that he was racist or anything, um but usually what happens is you get like a 5 kilometer like leeway. So like if it's like 160, like you can knock off a
Yeah.
few points and just let him go with like a speeding ticket. But that guy made sure that we got impounded that
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
I guess three boys in a German car was just a red flag for that guy. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of videos too, like officers pulling up on rich black people, thinking they stole the cars, or thinking like, what's your job? Like, like you're suspicious. Like, why are you in this car and you're black? Type thing. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know. It's just very weird to me. Like, do they not realize that like there's rich black people out there as well?
I guess not.
Yeah.
But I will tie this in with our very last question for this podcast.
Yeah.
Can racism truly end?
Um, that's a very good. That's pretty deep question. I think we can for sure minimize it. Can it end? I think that goes down to can there be no evil on earth? And I think there was always going to be people who fall into the temptation, like just like you see people being broke, just like you see people doing drugs, just like you see people being good to each other. There's always going to be like, because you always feel like there's a good side and a bad side in your head that's just telling you, okay, oh, I need to do my homework. Oh, I don't feel like doing my homework. There's always going to be that kind of thing going on. So there's always going to be people. I think there's unless we get rid of all evil, I guess. But there's I feel like there is always going to be racist people. But the good thing is we can completely minimize their power. If we have legislation and we always enforce our legislation on them, they're powerless. So it wouldn't even matter if someone's hating on me, or if someone wants to kill black people, they can go to jail for it, which has not been done. which is we don't see that being done right now. We see officers getting their jobs back after senselessly murdering people. We see people going out on bail, black people going to jail for possession in legal states. We see like weird stuff going on where they just have so much power. And I feel like the best thing we can do, and I'm always hopeful for this, is that the good people will always succeed.
Do you think systematic racism can end though?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of laws we need to change, and I think if we have the right people in charge, it's very, very possible, because um, we always see laws changing, and we always see as long as there's democracy, which we have, I think it's a very possible thing.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
I think racism is a mindset, and I'll tie this in with slavery because for centuries, black people were slaves.
Yeah.
And so what for centuries when this becomes a practice, I think subconsciously it just becomes a mindset in white people's minds that they're superior. And I
Mhm.
think that mindset really doesn't leave because abolition of slavery was very recent. It happened in the early 1900s,
Yeah.
and so it hasn't even been like 100 years since
Mhm.
the
Very
abolition.
fresh. Yeah.
So I think this mindset will take a bit of time to actually just get
Mhm.
evaporated, but I think it's one of it is mindset and the other one is just ignorance. I think racism stems from ignorance as well because people just don't care, and they don't really understand the impact of their words or their actions. And I think that's where education comes in. And when this happens in schools, when like Tavon, when he wasn't allowed to wear the bandana, or you not being able to wear a hoodie,
Yeah.
or anything like that, I think that subconsciously signals to the other people in the class, right, or something like that. Like it just gives them that sign, that because the school is doing this, it's okay for us to do this. So I
Mm.
think it needs to change systemically, and that's when people will learn about racism and everything. But
I agree.
so I think that concludes it. Do you have any closing remarks for this podcast?
I appreciate you guys having me as the first guest. That's a lot of weight on my shoulders, I guess. No.
Yeah.
No, man, you did great, man.
Where can we find the you guys gotta plug yourselves?
Yeah. So we're gonna be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're gonna be on YouTube, and
Mhm.
we were debating about having a presence on Instagram and Facebook. But since it's a podcast, I feel like it's more appropriate for it to be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But it will be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube for sure. And
Yeah.
because we have this recorded, it will be on YouTube,
Mhm.
100%. But thank you so much for like joining us and
Yeah,
having
no
this
worries,
wonderful
no
Thank
worries.
you
discussion with
so
us.
much.
You didn't have to do it, but you did, and we didn't really keep in touch, but like you respected the friendship and everything, and you came,
Yeah.
you did this for us. So like I'm really grateful that you did this, man. And
No
this was
problem.
a very, very nice, fruitful discussion that we had. um do you have anything else to say,
It was
Matthew?
nice meeting you.
Yes, sir.
Um,
You too.
absolutely, yeah. I had a really great time, and it was just I really enjoyed getting your perspective on this, and Heather's, and somebody who has went through some struggles in my life. I always make sure to recognize that my struggles um, were never due to the color of my skin. They were always some other factor, and I just think it's really something interesting. And me and him, we really came up with this idea, and we really wanted to have guests and get different perspectives. And I'm
Yeah.
really happy that you were the first guest ever on this podcast. So thank you very much. This is a
All right,
blessing.
thanks, guys.
All right.
See ya.
See ya.
Peace, bro.
Take care.
All right, I'm gonna stop recording.